There's a patch of blue here. I don't know whether that's the lake. I've got no idea where this lake is. These are cute fish. I can feel the weight of the challenge. Can't believe the quality of this fishing. It's mind-blowing. Yes! What a fish! This time around we've got a really fiendish challenge. Now at first glance it looks fairly easy. I've got to catch 2 grayling from the river test and the river's full of them, so what's the problem with that? Well, 2 problems actually. First of all, it's a stretch that I've never been to before, and secondly, one's got to be on bait and the other one's got to be on fly. Now we've got classic grayling fishing conditions today. Bright, sunny, frosty and cold. Perfect picture postcard stuff, but I've got a feeling that the fishing might be a little bit tricky and that fish on the fly could prove difficult. We're about 2.5 hours into the challenge already. I left my house at about 12:30 when I received the challenge, and now we're approaching 3 o'clock and I'm on the outskirts of Stockbridge. I've got just a few miles to go. Well, this is a stretch that I'm really looking forward to fishing, but I've got to get my skates on if I'm going to get any fishing in this afternoon. So what I've decided to do is to travel as light as I can. I know that there's a fishing hut here just beyond the car park, so I'm going to take a few things out, get set up by the hut and then go on off up the river. Well, what better place to start than the top of the beat? This stretch is called the Parsonage and it's absolutely beautiful. Normally it's fly fishing only here, but with it being midwinter, we've got special permission off the owners for this challenge, and I'm really looking forward to it. Up here the river's a little bit shallower, but you can see how wide the test is. It's a really beautiful river, isn't it? There's a lot of carriers and things meandering their way through the Hampshire countryside in these parts, but it's the main river I think I'm probably going to stick to, at least initially. And on the way up here I've been looking at the different places, and I think this shallower end at the top looks a good place for a grayling. So I'll make a start here, and then as you can see I haven't got much stuff with me. I'll work my way back down the beat. Well, the grayling is a fish that appeals to both coarse fishers and game fishers. Technically speaking, of course, it is a game fish. It's got an adipose fin at the back, and it's a beautiful fish that displays graceful lines and in some cases bright vivid colours if you catch a male grayling. A very beautiful fish that many people know as the lady of the stream, and this is its perfect habitat. We're here on the River Test. It's a fantastic grayling venue. Synonymous with the species over the years, and of course this really is the heart of British chalk stream fly fishing country. But I'm afraid the Houghton Club would probably be not too impressed by this lot. These things don't get used on this stretch very often, maggots. They're a fantastic winter grayling bait. I've caught lots of grayling on them. I'd rather catch the fish on fly, but I've got to catch one here on fly and on bait. So we're going to start off with the bait fishing using maggots as bait, and we've got special dispensation to use them. This is not going to be the shoe-in that you think it is, because I can tell you that there'll be a lot of trout in this stretch, and they could prove to be a real nuisance when we're trying to catch a grayling. If I can catch a fish on bait, then I'll move on to the tougher challenge of fly fishing. Now, mobility is absolutely essential when you're doing a challenge like this. I've literally got about an hour of light left to fish today. Then I'm going to sleep, not rough on the bank, but I'm going to sleep in the fishing hut on site, be up first thing tomorrow morning and off and at it, hopefully with the fly. Mobility's essential, so I've got a small bag here. This is where I'm going to carry all my bits and pieces. I've got some floats and shots, hooks and that sort of thing. A cushion to kneel on, my bait, and then rod and reel, landing net and rod rest. And with this equipment, I can roam all over this fishery, and you can bet that I will. Well, I'm into a fish straight away, but judging by the huge bow wave that's going off down the river, I don't think this is a grayling. The problem is when you use maggots, you will attract other fish, and I'm pretty sure that this is a trout. Yes, it is. Of course, these fish are not in season, so it's a shame to catch them, and to catch them on bait especially. There it is. Well, I always knew that the trout factor was going to be an issue on the test, and so it's proved. And you can see the winter trout is a pale imitation in terms of its condition of the fish that you would expect to catch in the summer. And ordinarily you'd think, well, it'd be great to catch a fish like this, but when you're after the grayling, trout are extremely aggressive and they'll always get to the bait first. So it's a mixed blessing, but it's a bit of sport. Let's put the fish back in. There's not too much to admire because this one's well out of condition anyway. I'm going to drop it back in the landing net, and it's off. None the worse for wear. Well, this is a cracking looking bit of water, but by trial and error I found out with the float that it's incredibly shallow here, probably only 18 inches to 2 feet. Could be very good for fly fishing tomorrow, but it's a bit of a nightmare to trot. My experience with grayling in the winter is that they tend to shoal up, so it's a bit feast or famine, and what I'm looking for are slightly deeper areas, little depressions and things in the riverbed, and that could hold a group of fish. Here is very, very uniform, so I'm going to drop down below that riffle down there and try some trotting sort of halfway, 2/3 across the river. It looks ideal. Well, we're now over 3 hours into our challenge, It's not too long before it gets dark. The sun's very low on the horizon already. And I've got a bit of a problem here because at this end of the fishery, the water's incredibly shallow and I'm not really rigged up right for that. To fish this shallow, I probably need what we call a waggler float, a short, dumpy waggler float, fish bottom end only. And I'm fishing with a float fish, what we call double rubber, that's attached top and bottom. And it's a float that would work very well in the deeper water, but not so well in this really shallow stuff. I've got a bit of a headwind. It's pushing right into my face, and that's causing problems because the float set so shallow, it's tangling the line. The hook's flipping over the float and getting quite a lot of tangles on the cast. So that's a bit of a nuisance actually. I've got a feeling that ledgering might work in these spots. I'm sure there's grayling here. And I think maybe that's what I'll do. I'll try and improvise ledger. I've left all my stuff, of course, back at the hut, and it's too late to go back down and get it now. Well, logic dictates that I should go downstream to where the water's a bit deeper. But I just feel there are grayling in this area. It's got all the right ingredients. And I've just got one of those little feelings that I should go back to where I started and give it one last go. I'm going to run the float through again, a little bit shallower this time. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to rig up an impromptu ledger, just a simple paternoster, and bounce it round there a bit, because I get a feeling there are grayling up there. So let's go and have a go. Well, has my hunch paid off? I'm into a fairly hefty fish in this very shallow swim. Float just buried, and I'm into a nice fish that's just hanging out in that current out there. I've got to say though that it is hard to tell, but I don't think it's a grayling. You tend to get more of a kind of jagging, twisting fight with a grayling. So my money's on this probably being a trout. Of course, just catching a grayling on bait might not be a problem, but I've got to buy myself as much fly fishing time as I can possibly muster. I'm pretty sure this is a trout. It's a fairly hefty fish. If it's a grayling, it's a big one. Yes, it's a trout. I thought as much. Oh, and it's pulled the hook. Well, it's no massive loss, of course, with it being a trout. I'm not too distressed, but if I'd seen a great big sail like dorsal fin pop up there and then lost it, I'd have been very upset. But I could see it was a rainbow trout, so not to worry. Oh, there's another fish. Oh, well, there's no doubting what that is. I'm into another trout. And you know, the sport is really fantastic with these fish. They're such hard fighting fish, trout, but this isn't really the right way to catch them. And with every trout that I hook, with that huge disturbance going on, the more sort of gentle grayling, it's a much more circumspect fish. I don't think they're going to tolerate much of that. Well, it's a little bit thin, but it's in much better condition than the other fish. It's not faring as badly this winter. Nice colours, all the fins are fully formed. So it's a nice capture, and on a fly rod in a few months' time, well, it'd be a magnificent fish to catch. Well, I've got another fish on now. The swim's really coming to life, but I've got a horrible feeling that I may have attracted every trout in the vicinity onto my trailer bait. But it's great fun and great sport. I'm trying to lead these fish out of the swim as quietly as I can so that they don't disturb any other fish that are there. In the net. Another trout. Look at that. Yes, they're beautiful fish, but they're not what I'm after, and the sun's really dropping now down below the yard arm. Come on. That hook's in a really awkward spot. There it is. Beautiful classic lines on the fish, but you can see that the fish is slightly thin because in the middle of winter it hasn't got the food that it would naturally get in a stream like this. It can of course grub around for nymphs, little shrimps, scamarous type shrimps and various other olive nymphs, but the pickings are a little bit sparse compared to the summer. Oh, well, I've just pulled the hook out of a fish there, and I'm pretty sure that was a grayling. It wasn't as big as the trout that I hooked, and it was wriggling away and forcing itself backwards on the line, wriggling like an eel, and I'm sure that I've just lost a grayling. I don't believe it. Well, all I can do now is hope that that fish was part of a shoal, because I'm almost certain it was a grayling. It was certainly smaller than the trout I've been hooking. The fight was more reminiscent of a grayling. I could feel the fish twisting and turning and wriggling in the current. And I've hooked enough grayling to know what the fight from one feels like, and I'm absolutely gutted. I know that in this section of the river here on the test, there aren't as many grayling as trout. In fact, there's considerably less. And I need as much time as possible to fly fish, because in this cold weather, there are no insect hatches going on, and the fly fishing is going to be really, really tough. So the quicker I can get a grayling, any grayling on bait, the better it's going to be. And to lose one like that so close to dusk that's a gutter. Well, this is a very tricky situation now, because the daylight's fading, and I've worked my way all the way along this straight in the shallow water. I've hooked and lost what I'm pretty sure was a grayling, so that's very disappointing. But because I don't know the stretch, I've really got no idea of where to go next. Well, it's stick or twist. Do I go downstream or do I go upstream? I'm really not sure. Well, it's certainly a beautiful day. The test's very low. We've had so little rain this year that the level's well down. Now I'm looking for somewhere, I think with pace, maybe where the river narrows a little bit. Well, this is an interesting piece of river. The river narrows slightly here. It's got a little bit more pace. And I've just seen a fish rise mid-river. Now, it could have been a trout, but I think at this time of year, you're more likely to get a rise off a grayling than a trout. And because of the extra pace, it could be a good trot. I'm sort of sandwiched between two trees, which makes it a little bit awkward. I'll try it here, and then if these branches get in the way, I'll have to go back above the tree. And let's just try it. Oh, that was a bite quite well down the swim there, and I'm into a pretty sizable fish here. I don't think it's really woken up yet. It was a kind of slow dragging bite really. The fish is wriggling around a lot. It is actually fighting like a grayling, but the size of this thing, I don't believe it can be. It's oh, there it is on the surface. It's a big fish. And that's really frustrating when you've thrown your last dice of the day really on this spot. The sun's nearly gone. I've covered a lot of river. I'm just assuming that this fish is a big trout because it's a heavy fish. Certainly the biggest one of the day. Making a right old disturbance in the swim. Get it out quickly. Very nice brown trout that. They're certainly not small fish here. Beautiful looking fish really, look at that. Again, a little bit thin, but beautiful colours and nice fins on this fish. Really nice brown trout. Well, it's been a difficult afternoon. I've only had a couple of hours fishing anyway. I've covered quite a lot of the river during that time, and I've hooked and lost what I'm sure is a grayling. But it's quite obvious to me, this is one of the steadier pieces of the test. It's not going to be full of grayling. There's a lot of trout here, but possibly not so many grayling. They're going to be in small pockets. And if tomorrow I'm going to catch a fish on bait and on fly, which is the task I'm left with, I've got my work cut out. And you might be wondering what I'm going to do this evening. Well, the answer to that is I don't think I can afford to waste any time at all. I've got most of tomorrow to catch a couple of grayling, but I know it's going to be tricky. And there's a fishery hut down at the bottom there. It's got no electricity or anything, but it's got a little stove in it, and I'm going to spend the night there. Well, that's it for me. It's got really cold now. The line's freezing in the rod rings. My landing net's getting crispy because the ice is forming. It's going to be a freezing night down in the fishing hut, but I need all the time I can get on the water because, believe me, this is going to be one tough challenge. Well, just to prove that this is a real challenge, it was absolutely freezing cold in this fishing hut last night. There's no power here, so we didn't have any heating or any lighting, and the temperature dropped to well below freezing. But there's no rest for the wicked. I've got a challenge to achieve, and as reluctant as I am to get out of this sleeping bag and into the freezing cold dawn, I've come up with a plan. I'm going to give it an hour, fishing just the other side of dawn to see if I can catch a grayling here. If I can't get one on this stretch, there's no stipulation in the challenge about where on the test I've got to go. I'm going to head downriver and try another beat that I know. Well, it was a really cold night, and as you can see, the rod's frozen up, the rings are frozen up. I've managed to sort of de-ice those, and now I'm working on the reel drag, which is working reliably actually, which is amazing, so that's great. But the bait's nearly gone. Anyway, I've been feeding this swim for a little while, so I'm just going to try running a bait through this little crease here. Just trying this little slack. Oh, there's a fish. How about that? Oh, I might have known it's a trout. Oh, I thought I'd try this little slack just under my feet off the main flow. It looked like it should hold a fish or two, but I'm into quite a hefty fish now, and I think it's probably a trout. It's really cold. Can hardly feel my hands. Really cold. Oh, absolutely freezing. Oh, could do with a fish that doesn't fight quite as hard as this actually. Oh, it's going mad. think I've got frostbite. Really nice looking trout actually. It's in pretty good condition as well. I'll hold it up, but oh, my hands are just so cold. Steady on. But look at that, it's a beautiful fish. A cracking brown trout. A really nice way to start the day in these classic picture postcard conditions. But I think if I'm going to catch a grayling, I might need to move to another stretch. I've got the rest of the day to go more or less, so all is not lost yet, and I've enjoyed catching that despite the cold. Well, this could be the worst bit, just trying to get the hook out with freezing cold fingers. I'm just trying to work out where it's gone here. There it is. Okay, Mr. Trout, just hold steady a moment. It's got very sharp teeth, this fish. Well, I've got to say, that whole experience was very bittersweet because, believe me, it's quite painful. Trout have got quite sharp teeth and my fingers are really freezing. Fish is away. Well, I've invested about 15 minutes. I've got 6 hours left to go, and I say invested because I think this move is well worthwhile. Now, I've driven downriver from where I was fishing to Romsey, and this is a more urban stretch of the River Test, and it's actually controlled by a friend of mine. And what I was thinking last night, I realised that because the river's so low this year, anywhere with a bit more flow is probably going to fish better. And I thought about this stretch. So let's just hope that the gamble pays off. Oh, there's a fish. First cast. I've been feeding the swim for about 10 minutes. Literally first cast, how about that? And I'll tell you what, I think we could be in business here. These grayling put up an amazing fight in this really fast flowing water. They're ever so strong. They turn broadside onto the current, and the male fish have got a very big dorsal fin, and they use it like a sail to create resistance in the current. And this one looks like a male. I can just see the purple edge to its fin. It's like a mauve colour, and it looks like it could be a male. It looks a distinctive fin, but it's a grayling, and I've got it. Oh, well, that's 50% of the challenge done. And it just goes to show, if you're in the right place at the right time, one cast is worth 1,000 casts in the place that's not right in the conditions on the day. There you are. Absolutely beautiful grayling, gorgeous colours, classic lines, and there's that beautiful big dorsal fin. Look at the mauve and lavender colours on the grayling. It's a wonderful mix of warm pastel colours and cooler silver and gunmetal hues. That's what we came for. We've got the fish on bait. Now we've got to get one on fly. Well, as you'll recall, the next phase of the challenge is going to be the trickiest part. As if it hasn't been tricky enough already, I've now got to catch a grayling on a fly. So the first thing I did when I caught the fish there was to stop feeding any bait into the swim, because this long run here looks great for grayling, but if I keep putting maggots in here, it's certainly not going to help things. So I'm going to try traditional nymphs. It's very, very cold. There's not likely to be a hatch. If there is, it's going to be later on in the day. So it's nymph fishing tactics, and I'm going to start off nice and traditional with a little gold-ribbed, gold-headed hare's ear down on the point, and then a small spider up on the top dropper. Fishing traditional downstream and across or upstream, and see what it brings. And then if that doesn't work, then we can move on to some of the more modern grayling flies like the bugs and such like. But let's give the traditional a go first. There you are, that's a little home-tied pheasant tail nymph on the top dropper. Well, this isn't going to be the easiest place to fly fish. There's not really any sort of backcast here, so I'm going to have to fish without taking the line out of the water. So it'll be off the water casts, just flicking the nymphs across the stream at this stage. Right at the end of the cast again. So, well, at least the fish are having a go at the flies. That felt like a bigger fish. It could have been a trout, of course, but at least there's fish around. I think what I've got to do is just meticulously work my way down this bit of river and try and cover almost every inch of the river and pop the fly into the fish's mouth. The big problem with this style of nymph fishing, downstream nymphing in a reasonable flow, is that you do get that problem of a pull at the end of the cast on a tight line, and quite often you feel a lunge and the fish is off. It is a hazard with it. But in this particular area, I can't really fish any other way at the moment. Yes, I thought I'd got the bottom then, but I've actually got a fish. It's just thumped. Now, it took the fly right on the dangle again, but I was ready for it this time. I don't know whether it's a trout or a grayling at this stage. Now, obviously, I'm hoping it's a grayling, and I'm hoping it stays on, because when you're playing a fish on fly in this quite shallow, pacey water, especially with grayling, because of this resistance they offer to the current, there's always a chance that you're going to lose the fish as it kites across. Oh, it is a grayling. Oh, and it's a beautiful fish. Look at the colours. Oh, I hope I don't lose it now. It's really pulling hard. They just put that dorsal fin up to the current and offer resistance, and this is the time when you often lose them. It's a beautiful fish, and it's the one I want. Yes, I've done it. And you know, last night I was beginning to think that I'd got absolutely no chance of achieving this challenge, and in just an hour's fishing it's all turned round. That's absolutely amazing. It's a nice grayling too. It's not a huge fish, but it's not a small one. It's taken the point fly, which is a little tungsten headed home tide nymph. There it is, right in the top lip. That wasn't going to come off. That's absolutely blooming marvellous. Well, I can't tell you how good that feels, because believe me, the pressure is always on with these challenges. And you know, in the series, that means that basically I've achieved 4 out of the 6 challenges set me. Of course, I would love to have done them all, but I said from the start that we would keep this challenge series real and show all the highs and lows, the successes, the failures, and show success when it happened. And that's absolutely brilliant. I've completed the challenge in 19 hours with 5 hours to go. Awesome.